Wow. Hello, J Street. I'm so excited. Wow. It's amazing. It's amazing to see how many people came to support J Street. It's incredible to see you from here. Wow, I must admit that I'm excited. And I want to thank you. J Street U students, how many people are here? Wow, wow, wow. Jeremy Ben-Ami, ladies and gentlemen, J Street U students, dear friends, really I'm deeply honored to be here today. This is my next time here in J Street. I was here, I think, almost 2 years ago when I was elected, 2 months after I was elected to lead Meretz. And I'm proud to say that we have since doubled our strength in the last elections. And I hope that by the next time I'm here, we will double our size once again. And I dare say that I also hope to see Meretz as a major partner in a new government, one that will be courageous enough to finally bring an end to our conflict with the Palestinians. During the past 2 years, J Street has continued to play a crucial role in the American Jewish community and a critical part in the American public life. You have affected the relationship between the government of Israel and the Jewish in the United States. You have demonstrated clearly and convincingly that being pro-Israel doesn't mean blindly supporting and actively lobbying for radical right-wing policies. You have also given us, Israelis, who share your vision for the future of Israel, a renewed sense of legitimacy, especially when we, not just you, were used to be accused of being self-hating Jews and anti-Zionist. Let me say this very clearly. Those who do not support a two-state solution, those who prefer an Israel that is promoting subjugation and discrimination over human rights and democracy, those who think that belonging to the chosen people gives you the right to abuse and discriminate against non-Jews, they are the real dangerous anti-Zionists. The good news today, after 3 years of a diplomatic deep freeze, is that there are now renewed negotiations with the Palestinians. But to take advantage of this opportunity, our government must realize that a viable two-state solution can only be based on the 67 boundaries with mutually agreed land swaps. It must realize that sovereignty in Jerusalem cannot remain solely Israeli. And it must understand that settlements will have to be evacuated and their inhabitants resettled. Settlements must be evacuated and their inhabitants resettled into the internationally recognized borders of the State of Israel. Secretary Kerry has said the time is running out for Israel. His words couldn't be more apt. We cannot wait forever for our leaders to come to terms with the reality of what a two-state solution looks like. And so, my dearest friends here, J Street supporters, my Israeli colleagues, Tzipi Livni and Sheli Yachimowicz, who spoke before me in this conference, all articulated so correctly their support for separation from the Palestinians, because they care about Israel's future, because they care about Israel's security, and because they care about Israel's interest. I do too, but I would like to remind everyone that even if Israel's future is secured, even if our security is not threatened, even if our interests were forever protected, then in itself would not be enough as long as we are still an occupying nation. A nation that subjugates millions of Palestinians and denies them their liberty and sovereignty. Just a few days ago, President Obama said at the UN General Assembly that the occupation of the West Bank is tearing the democratic fabric of the Jewish state. I couldn't agree more. So again, let me say this very clearly. We must end the occupation. To stop the daily suffering and humiliation of Palestinians, to assure that everyone between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea can finally have equal rights and protection. We must end the occupation for the sake of our own decency and humanity. We must end the occupation because subjugation of another people contradicts every humanist and Jewish value we stand for. We must end the occupation because for 45 years we have been slowly eroding the moral foundations on which Israel stands, and what is left cannot support us as a nation for much longer. So, my dearest friends, if we dare dream of having a country with a future, then we must end the occupation. And let me also say something here about the new openings for diplomacy with Iran. It is true that we must not be naive and cannot support anything that cannot be verified and that does not include safeguards. But a negotiated agreement is the best option for preventing nuclear Iran. We rightly expect America to be a good ally to Israel, but we, as Israel, must also be a solid ally for America. And if the US president is giving us guarantees while exploring a diplomatic option with a new Iranian leadership, then we must not play the spoiler. We must not play politics in America. We must not dismiss this hope and possibility for an historic agreement that can also serve our vital interest. So I want to say from here to Mr. President Obama, Mr. Vice President and Secretary Kerry, good luck in your talks with Iran, and I can tell you that the people of Israel wish you success. Dear friends, tomorrow Prime Minister Netanyahu will address in the United Nations General Assembly about Iran, of course, but and also about the renewed negotiation and the stated support of a two-state solution. These words often make people to think that Netanyahu has crossed the Rubicon when it comes to promoting an historical compromise with the Palestinians. I wish this was true. Unfortunately, Netanyahu declared his support for Palestinian independence over 4 years ago in his famous Bar Ilan speech. But since then, he has done nothing to prove he has intended anything more than to pay lip service to an idea whose times has come. His current government, I want you to hear this very carefully. His current government, much like his previous ones, tell the world one story, but his policies tell an entirely different story. A story that makes a mockery of the idea of Palestinian state, sovereignty and state. Dear friends, and so the question facing Israel is this day is this: which of our government's two personalities should they believe in? Is our government represented by Minister Livni, who has been charged by Prime Minister Netanyahu to negotiate with the Palestinians, or is it represented by Economics Minister Naftali Bennett and by many of the Likud ministers who publicly promise to undermine any agreement? These right-wing ministers are obsessed with tightening Israel's grip on the West Bank and constantly condone violence and coercion against Palestinians. So please tell me, which of our government's two personalities should the people in Israel believe in? I must admit that it is really hard to believe that this government's negotiation phase is anything but a tactic to buy time. I don't know, because the reality we are witnessing on the ground tells us that the Netanyahu coalition is being captured by the extremely radical racist and zealot group of settlers living in isolated illegal outposts in the West Bank. It is incredible to see how barely 1% of people, such a small number, place such a tight stranglehold on Prime Minister Netanyahu. The extreme settlers forced the government to fund construction of new settlements in the West Bank, even now as negotiations with the Palestinians are underway. Ladies and gentlemen, you must understand this group holds power over the Israeli establishment. They have full-time dedicated lobbyists in the coalition who support the fanatic 1%, and they believe that it is all about our God-given right to every inch of the land of Israel, never about the price in human lives paid on the way to fulfill this vision. For example, somehow our prisons are full of hundreds of Palestinians who were detained without sentence for crimes like arranging illegal protests, while settlers can be documenting torching olive groves, destroying water pits, even attacking IDF officers, and still no one gets arrested, let alone put on trial. So once again, you can see how the radical group holds the future of a two-state solution hostage. Dear friends, so you may ask, where is the good news? If there is any at all, while the Israeli government continues to serve the interests of the 1% extremists. To this I say, yes, we have more than few reasons to be optimistic. I want to tell you about my party, Meretz. We in Meretz are doing everything in our power to show that there is still a solid majority in Israel for a two-state solution. In the last few months, I, together with my colleagues, my partners from Meretz, met with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah and with Prince Hassan of Jordan as part of our mission to show that true partners for peace do exist and that there is no substitute for an agreement based on the 67 lines. Abu Mazen clearly told us in front of cameras that the Palestinians realized that they will not be returning to Haifa, Akko, Jaffa, Tzfat as part of the permanent settlement. His words prove again that this is a rare moment in history. And I tell you that Netanyahu cannot and must not miss this opportunity. Dear J Street youth students and J Street supporters, the Israeli government and the Palestinians were brought into the current negotiations thanks to tremendous efforts by President Obama, Vice President Biden, and Secretary of State Kerry. These peace talks can and must bear fruit. They can, and I think that this is now the opportunity. This is the opportunity to happen, that this will happen. But for this to happen, our Prime Minister must make up his mind. Does he side with the fundamentalist right-wing extremists, or is he willing to join the peace camp and finally put an end to the conflict? We cannot keep on having a prime minister who one day is Dr. Netanyahu and the next day is Mr. Bibi. Dear friends of Israel, whatever happens, Meretz will always support a peace agreement in the Knesset, no matter which government reaches it. From day one, I've told Prime Minister Netanyahu personally and publicly, you have a mandate to reach an historical compromise. You have the support of a strong majority of the Israeli public. Knowing you don't have the support you need in your own party and your own coalition, I told him, I can assure you that you have a huge majority in the Israeli Knesset. So what's the problem? Why not? So I don't know why not, and I want to summarize, permit me to summarize. We have to hope for a better future, for an end to the conflict, and for more equality and justice. We cannot afford not to. No one will do this job for us. This is the challenge facing us in Israel, and I dare say you here too. Dear friends, support for the left is rising again in Israel. Our voice is slowly being heard by audiences who previously would never listen to us, and our message makes sense to them because they too want peace and justice, and they too have grown tired of our leaders' messianic delusions. And so my message to you today is this. We must pursue these new opportunities and believe that our progressive voice will soon be back in power. We have to believe that our values will prevail if we continue to fight to make them heard. And finally, we must know that by doing so, it is us who will be the ones shaping the future of Israel. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.